Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about the Portland Timbers in the Moving Forward series episode. So, one thing I will give credit for the Portland Timbers in terms of this season is the fact that they at least last the playoff longer than I thought they would. And I'm pretty sure they last the playoffs that many Timbers fans would have thought that they would because this team, along with Orlando City, as I mentioned, were dead man walking heading into the playoffs. I mean, they really backed their way into the playoffs, and that I pretty much gave them no shot in terms of doing anything in the playoffs. So the fact that they were able to beat RSL in the play-in round, and the fact that they really pushed San Diego pretty hard in the first round of the playoffs, even though I thought that was just an easy sweep for the newly expansion side. I'll give them credit, the fact that they at least show some fight in terms of that. But heading into this season, there is still a lot of uncertainty with this team, and especially the direction that this team is heading. It's kind of a bit weird in terms of how this team is going to look like, and especially the elephant in the room of this team, of them just kind of being stagnated, is the fact that the head coach of this team, I'm pretty sure a lot of Timbers fans are still not happy that he's still there, and most likely is going to be there at least for the beginning of next season. Now, looking at their overall record, they finished with an 11-11-12 record, finished with 44 points. They only scored 41 goals this season. So this is one thing that I'll say about the Timbers that, something I actually haven't mentioned a lot that is a huge concern heading into next season is that their goal scoring has absolutely regressed to the mean this season. I mean, in past season, that was kind of one of the strengths for the Portland Timbers. They've always been one of the top goal scoring team, and I always mention the fact that this is a team that always have problem in terms of leaking goal, and yet the goal allowed mark this season was actually pretty good. 48 goals conceded this season, and that's definitely a huge improvement compared to previous season. But the fact that they've only scored 41 goals and have a -7 goal differential, it's kind of weird. The fact that of all the things I've said about the Timbers having problem on the defensive end, it's kind of the opposite when you look at the stats, where the fact that they're not scoring as much as they should be, and they're kind of having the opposite problem that they had all those years of being a good scoring team, but have problem in terms of keeping the ball out of the back of the net. They finished eighth in the Western Conference, and they were eliminated by San Diego in the first round. Top goal scorer on this team. So anytime when you have a team that doesn't score a lot of goals, you know that there's not going to be a lot of players that's going to be in the 10 plus goal scoring mark, and this is not a surprise that it's the case for the Timbers. But they do have two guys with 7 goals. You got Anthony and Kevin Kelsey with 7 goals, followed by Felipe Mora with 5 goals. David Acosta with 4 goals, and then Santi Marino, who's no longer on this team, with four goals to round up the top five. Top assist leader, you got David DaCosta with 8 assists, followed by Anthony with 7 assists. Santi Marino, who's also no longer on this team, and thankfully no longer on this team. If you're a Portland Timbers fan with 5 assists, followed by Juan David Mascara with 5 assists, and then Felipe Mora rounds up the top five with 4 assists. Best win of the season. I'm actually gonna go with their playoff game number two of the playoffs, where they were able to win in that dramatic PK shootout, and that was the game where they got a very late equalizer, literally the last kick of the game, with Gage Guerrero, of course, getting that late equalizers to send that to a PK shootout, and eventually the Timbers did win that PK shootout to move on into game number three and settle a decisive game three as well. Now, normally I don't pick playoffs as the best win of the season unless if it's a dramatic kind of win, and especially draws as well. I don't usually pick as the best win of the season because it's still kind of a draw on the book, even with a PK shot win. But when you look at some of the wins that the Timbers had, I mean, most of the wins that they have isn't really as spectacular as what we saw in the game against San Diego. I mean, when Gage Guerrero scored that equalizer, I mean, Providence Park absolutely erupted. Did similar to what we saw when Felipe Mora scored that equalizer against NYCFC in MLS Cup in 2021, and the fact that they were able to do that in dramatic fashion, and the fact that, as I mentioned, they definitely show more fight than I thought they would in the playoffs. I thought they were just gonna lay down and just accept the fact that they're gonna easily get steamroll once they step their foot into the playing round. Yeah, just shows you the fact that at least they definitely show some some fight that no Timbers fan thought that they had heading into the playoffs. The worst loss of the season. You could have easily gone with game number three, where I think as much as that best win of the season of them forcing a game three, it's almost like it delayed the inevitable. The fact that they were just gonna lay down and get beat in game number three, and in game number three it wasn't pretty with them losing 4-0 against San Diego FC. And I could have easily gone with the 4-0 loss that they had against San Diego earlier this season. Well, not early in the season, but also in the latter part of the season at home. That was pretty embarrassing. But I got to go with the 3-0 loss that they had against Toronto FC on the road. I mean, San Diego, I would give them kind of a pass the fact that they were facing a really good team at home as well, but to just lay down against one of the worst team in the league, that is Toronto FC. And again, you notice how I put worst loss of the season, and Toronto has kind of come up a lot. And again, this is no disrespect to Toronto FC. I mentioned before with TFC, they kind of got better as the season goes along. But this was still kind of during the time when Toronto wasn't really doing that good. And the fact that anytime when you conceded more than one or two goals against Toronto, that has to be the worst loss of the season. A team that even in the second half of the season when things got better, a team that barely score a lot of goals and have no goal scoring threat whatsoever. The fact that you conceded three against them, I mean, that was an utter embarrassment. And what's even more embarrassing is the fact that they were never in that game. The Timbers. I mean, they just it was a complete no show. For the Portland Timbers against one of the worst team in the league. So easily, I gotta say that has to be the worst loss of the season, and one that just kind of really frustrates a lot of the Timbers fan, and kind of shows the theme in terms of what we'll talk about, how this was once again a team just like what we see with Phil Neville team in the past, very up and down as the season goes along. Average attendance 22,248, which is good for third team in the league. Their attendance actually went up this season by a little, but let's be honest, the attendance hasn't been as good as it used to be. It's kind of sad the fact that Providence Park isn't sold out every single year like what we used to be. I mean, I know they did that major expansion in previous year, and it makes the place much better. But they rarely sold out that price. Also, doesn't help that new expansion and that new stand that they built. Tickets are really expensive in terms of that new stand, which is kind of maybe the reason why people don't buy those tickets, and especially seeing a team that isn't as good as it used to be. And not to mention, this is still a team that I think still turned a lot of fans off, especially of the scandal that they had just a couple of years ago. So when you add on top of that, the average attendance, as passionate as Timbers fan is, and there's no doubt that the Portland Timbers have one of, if not the most passionate fan base in the league. It's kind of sad to see that they no longer sell out every single game like we used to see with Providence Park in the past. And I've also seen that in some Timbers game, there definitely has been more notable empty seats that I've seen in the past, and that maybe just kind of shows the frustration with this fan base, the fact that this team has been very stagnant for the past couple of years, and are kind of falling that same category that I've talked about before, where teams that is kind of in this subcategory kind of situation where they're good enough to make it to the playoffs, but once they make it to the playoffs, yeah, they're not gonna do so much, and that's just as a worse feeling as seeing a team that doesn't make the playoffs every single year as well. MVP of this team, I'm actually gonna not choose anybody. Now, I know this is crazy to say for a team that make it to the playoffs, and me not choosing an MVP. But when you look at this team, I mean, who do you pick as the MVP of this team? Nobody really stand out as the guy of this team. I mean, some might say maybe David the Costa, but even then, looking at his number, definitely not worth the DP kind of tag that he is, and you wonder if he's gonna get better. I mean, you could also maybe go with Anthony, who was the top goal scorer and the second top assist leader as well, but he has his up and down this season as well. I mean, you could also go with Diego Chara as well. Probably I maybe should have picked Diego Chara because he was maybe the only guy that was consistent this year as well. But other than that, I mean, it was hard to pick an MVP. What was not hard is picking a disappointment, and I had a lot of choice in terms of disappointment. The only thing that was hard in terms of disappointment is picking which player it is, because there was a lot of players that I could have picked for this Timbers team that was a huge disappointment. But in the end, I'm actually gonna go with a guy that's no longer on this team, and I know I said before that I don't pick players that is no longer on the team, but I just had to pick him mainly because what a huge disappointment this has to be, and what a huge fall from grace this has to be for Santi Moreno, a guy that is used to be very well liked in the Timbers fan base, and a guy that was one of the top contributor for this Timbers team in the past. But then this season, I mean, not only his contribution has completely fell off the map, but then you had that situation in the middle of the season where he basically no show a team in the middle of the season, and it wasn't for a great reason whatsoever, and it got so ugly in terms of the off the field situation that they just outright cut him, and a lot of Timbers fans didn't feel bad for him. So yeah, you talk about a huge fall from grace. It is, and a player that is another example of just wasted the potential. I mean, a guy that has so much potential to be good. I even said that a couple of years ago. This is a guy that not only could be one of the centerpiece for this Timber side, but maybe could sold off for a huge amount of money in the near future as well. And to see what has kind of happened this year, and the off the field situation that he has, that really kind of force his way out of the Timbers. I mean, just such a waste of talent, and just such a huge disappointment, not only to the Timbers but to himself as well. Young player to watch on this team. I'm gonna go with Finn Sermon. So Finn Sermon, he is a guy that is really a huge part of why this Timbers defense has improved. I mean, he really stepped into this team and really kind of outright won that center back spot as well throughout the season as well. And I wouldn't be surprised he might consider to be one of the best defender out there. And the fact that he's only 22 years old, and the fact that he can get even better as well. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a young Michael Boxall in a sense, and not just because of the fact that both of them are Kiwi, but it's also the fact that, yeah, I mean, they look like a really strong kind of sturdy center back, kind of hard nosed, non national kind of not the kind of center back that is going to be really good in terms of anchoring that Timbers defense that desperately needed after all this year of them trying to find the right defensive solution. So yeah, there's no doubt that he's going to be a guy that is a young player to watch, and if he can continue to get better, should not be surprised he might also be sold off relatively soon as well. Because with the pedigree that he has and with the talent that he has, yeah, there's going to be already teams that is looking to trying to get him in the near future. So what went right for the Portland Timbers this season? So the defense, it actually improved throughout this season as well. And that's crazy to say, but the stats kind of backed it up. I mean, it wasn't great in the beginning of the season, but it kind of got better as the season goes along. And this was even during a time when they were kind of doing a revolving door in terms so the goalkeeping spot. I mean, anytime when you do a revolving door in the goalkeeping spot, that is usually a sign that a team does not have a good defense. But the fact that even though when they were doing that and their defense actually improved throughout the season. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of was a little bit surprising, but it also kind of plays the big part of why Finn Sermon played a big part of why that Timbers defense for the first time in quite some while looked like a respectable defense compared in the past. They had a great start to the season, so people forget that this team was among one of the top team in the Western Conference, and I kind of had a feeling that wasn't gonna last, given the track record that Phil Neville has. And what's kind of also interesting is that with them having a great start to the season, this is kind of the opposite of what we usually see with the Portland Timbers. They're usually a team that kind of tends to have some slow start throughout the season, but pick it up as the latter part of the season ends. But the season is kind of a little bit the opposite. It was a great start to the season, and as I mentioned before, they lasted longer in the playoffs than I thought, and probably what Timbers fan thought that this team would be. It looked like they were one and done, written all over it. But the fact that they were able to beat RSL in that playing round and gave San Diego a little bit more than they thought that they need to do to hold off against the Timbers and events. I think Timbers fan will be sort of happy that of course is the case. I don't know they'll be incredibly happy it's another first round exit, because as I said, this team has been kind of in this stage for a long time now, where it's just either a first round exit or playing exit. It's a stagnated kind of team that hasn't really done much ever since the MLS Cup run that they had in 2021. So yeah, I mean, they're happy that they at least give some effort, but they will not be happy the fact that once again this team did not make any progress compared to what we've seen in previous year. I mean, you could maybe say they made at least a little bit of progress because remember, prior to this season last year, they got knocked out by the Vancouver Whitecaps in the playing round, and they got absolutely shredded in that game. So maybe that might be some positive you could give to fans about their playoff run this year. But obviously, what went wrong with this team has got to be the inconsistency, and I'm not surprised that the inconsistency was a problem for this Timber side. I've said this before with Phil Neville and the fact that we saw this when he was with Inter Miami as well, where as much as Inter Miami what didn't make it to the playoffs and won the year that Phil Neville took charge, that team was very inconsistent. I mean, that team would have a stretch where they go on a 5 game winning streak, and then once the losing started to happen, yeah, it's a 5 game losing streak after. It's very up and down, and it happened again this year with the Portland Timbers. Every time that they went on an unbeaten run, as much as I know Timbers fans are excited that maybe they turn a corner, I kind of almost have to warn them that yeah, once the losing begins, once as soon as they lose a game, won't be surprised if they go on a losing streak as well. And yeah, I think when we get closer to the playoffs, when they actually had a decent run around August kind of time, then they really went on a horrible run in September, and in many ways just kind of backed themselves in to the playoffs as well. So yeah, I mean, just you kind of had a sense of that, of course, is the case, and I won't be surprised it might be the same thing again next year. Again, that's the big issue with Phil Neville kind of led team. He's a very head coach that he's not considered to be the worst head coach in this league, but he's probably the most frustrating head coach in this league because of the way that he just never able to get his team to have a consistent base throughout the season. The attack absolutely regressed, and this is despite the fact that they signed some big money players like David DaCosta and even Christopher Valde near the end of the season. I will give them a bit of a pass as I'll talk about in the moving forward series because I always give pass to the big name player that maybe not being able to settle in their first year. And for when you look at the Costa number, it's not as bad as some people have said it is. I mean, he still finished as the top assist contribution, and you would assume that he might have a kind of an Evander kind of type of projectile. Where remember when Evander came in to this team, Evander wasn't actually that good for the Timbers in his first season, and he really took off in the second season. That's I think is what they're hoping for the Costa, and same thing with Valde as well. Valde came in relatively late in the summer transfer window, and even though he was pretty bad for when he came in and really only things kind of turn around when the playoffs begin. Maybe that might be something that might be a positive if you're a Timbers fan, where if he can do what he did in the playoffs and produce like he did during the playoffs heading into next season, then maybe these big money signing that were definitely not producing this season would kind of turn around heading into next season. And then, of course, the revolving door in the goalkeeping spot. So, it's been Pantemis and Crepeau as the two goalkeeper that's kind of just changing the guards. And again, I'm kind of surprised the fact that despite the fact that they had this situation, the defense wasn't really effective by that as well. Now, obviously, next season they're not going to have this situation because they just recently sold Maxime Crepeau to Orlando City, and that James Pantemis is definitely going to be the number one for this team. Pantemis, I mean, he's okay. I mean, I wouldn't say he's great, but I wouldn't say he's considered to be one of the worst goalkeeper in this league. He's kind of like a meh kind of goalkeeper, and I guess if you're the Timbers, especially with the way that you solidified the back line and show some improvement, I think you can get away with just having a meh kind of goalkeeper, and especially when you also points to the defensive the stats that I had, I think they'll be okay, even if they just have kind of a meh goalkeeper between the stick. Now, moving forward, looking at the Portland Timbers, you're just hoping that Valde and DaCosta could improve next season. And again, Valde kind of showed that in the playoffs. Maybe that might be something that we might see next season. And, I'm pretty sure Timbers fans are hoping DaCosta might have an Evander situation where Evander definitely improve in his second season and he'll be the driving force because they really need that from them knowing the fact that, with how bad the attack was this season, that might be another thing that they might really need to focus. I mean, as much as I talk about how they need to focus on the defensive end, maybe they might need to focus on the attacking end as well, especially the goals. That is. I mean, I'm kind of thinking like they're hoping that guys like Anthony and Kelsey would only improve once the Costa get things going. But if they don't do so, then yeah, all of a sudden they might have the same problem heading into next season as they did this year as well. And then of course, looking at the central midfield and the defense as well, that is definitely an area that they'll need to improve. They already kind of did that on the defensive end. They just recently signed an Australian sent back to replace Kamal Miller. But central midfield is definitely one spot that I think is also going to be something that they might need to look in as well, especially with the way that it seems like David Ajala is going to go to Inter Miami. And I know some Timbers fans are not happy with this move. I mean, Ajala doing his time with the Timbers, I know he was kind of touted as the replacement for Diego Chara, but yeah, he's been very mediocre at best at time. And I think that if they do decide to move on for Ayala, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst possible move as long as they find a good replacement for him as well. Because there's no doubt that when you look at the central midfield, I mean, when Diego Chara is still your best player and your best defensive midfield or your best midfield player in the year of 2025, you know you have serious problem on the midfield side. And this team definitely has that problem. They don't have a lot of depth and a lot of quality as well. And maybe this also kind of plays the reason why they haven't scored a lot of goals and have some defensive problem. I mean, when you don't control the midfield as well, it's very hard to score goals and able to produce when you don't dominate that side of the field. So there's no doubt that they're gonna have to look into that for the remaining of this season. And again, with the potential sell of that David Ajala going to Inter Miami, it is most likely they're probably going to bring in a U22 initiative kind of signing in that spot. I mean, they have to be because when you look at the defensive mid that they have, it's not great whatsoever. And then of course the last thing moving forward for this team, it's got to be Phil Neville. And I think Timbers fans can all agree the fact that if this team does not improve next season, if this team is going to be like what we've seen in the last couple of years for Phil Neville being an inconsistent team, he's gone. Like there is no way I would think that he survived this season if this is going to be the season that is going to be similar to the last two seasons being an inconsistent team. Maybe just luckily back their way into the playoffs because again, it's a sign of complacency. And this is also a thing that I think Timbers fans are not only upset in terms of the head coach that they have, but also the front office as well. There has really been a disconnection between the fan base and the front office and in the last couple of years. I mean, it kind of really started with the scandal situation that we saw a couple of years ago, and I think it's just kind of gotten worse as the season goes along. Where there's definitely a lot of mistrust that's going on between the fan base and the front office. The fan base are definitely tired of the front office in terms of the decision making that they have, and it has just kind of make this team stagnant and heading to the wrong direction as well. So as a result, I mean, it's no surprise that the attendance hasn't been good, and it's also no surprise why Timbers fans are kind of not being very optimistic heading into next season, where things doesn't seem like it's going to change that much. The only thing that they might hope that it might change is that if some of their big signings does improve next season, maybe they'll do well. Because I guarantee you, if next season, if this Timber side is going to stagnate just like what we did in previous year, it's not going to be just Phil Neville that I think Timbers fans are going to call heads. I think they're going to call heads in terms of their front office, and probably the number one guy that they're calling heads for a very long time. It's got to be Merrill Paulson, the guy that has been once actually been very well loved by the Timbers fan base. He's kind of having a very Santi Moreno kind of story arc where he has just become one of the biggest villain right now in the Timbers fan base. I mean, just to mention that name, I'm pretty sure Timbers fans are very upset that he's still in charge of this team and has taken this team the wrong direction, as we've seen in these past couple of years. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Talk about the Portland Timbers in the Moving Forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Timbers fan, what do you think is the MVP, disappointment, young player to watch, what went right, what went wrong, and moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.